she gave him one rule.
No matter what happens at night,
Do not look at me. Do not light a lantern.
But the night Femi broke that rule was the night his life ended.
Femi was a poor farmer who lived in a small village in the western part of Nigeria. He was not lazy. He worked harder than most men in the village. Every morning before the sun rose, he would carry his hoe on his shoulder and walk to his small piece of land at the far edge of the village. He would dig, plant, and sweat. But no matter how hard he worked, nothing changed. His crops were always small, his harvest was always poor, and his life never moved forward. Sometimes he would sit alone in front of his old mud house at night, staring at the sky, asking himself the same question over and over again.
What am I doing wrong?
What am I doing wrong? But no answer ever came. The villagers knew him, but not in a good way. They saw him as the man who tried, but never succeeded. Men his age had wives, children, and laughter in their homes, but Femi had none of those things, just silence and hunger. One afternoon, when the sun was high and the heat was strong, Femi was on his farm again. His body was tired, his throat was dry. He stopped digging and leaned on his hoe, breathing heavily. That was when he saw her.
At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, because no one like her had ever walked through that part of the village before. She was coming slowly along the narrow path beside his farm. Her steps were weak and unsteady, like someone who had been walking for a very long time. Her clothes were dusty. Her face looked tired. But even in that state, she was beautiful. Not beautiful in the normal way. Something else. Something that made you look twice, without even knowing why. She stopped when she reached him, held onto his arm, and spoke in a soft, weak voice.
Please, give me water.
Femi did not think twice. He dropped his hoe immediately and ran to the clay pot under the tree. He poured water into a cup and rushed back to her. She took it with shaking hands and drank like someone who had not tasted water in days. When she finished, he gave her another. This time she drank slowly. Then she looked up at him. "Thank you," she said. Femi nodded. "Sit down first. You don't look strong." She sat carefully on the ground. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said something that made his heart pause. "I have nowhere to go." That was the moment everything began. And if Femi had known where that simple sentence would lead him, he would have walked away.
"What is your name and where are you coming from?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "My name is Dera and I'm from the neighboring village. There's a famine in the land," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. Femi looked at her again, really looked this time. There was something strange about her, something he could not explain. But he pushed the feeling aside because what he saw in front of him was a tired woman who needed help. And Femi had known too much hardship to ignore another person's pain. "There is a small room in my house," he said slowly. "It is not much, but you can stay there." She looked at him, and for a brief second, something flashed in her eyes, something deep, something that disappeared too quickly to understand. "You are kind," she said. Femi scratched his head, slightly embarrassed. "It is nothing." But it was not nothing. It was the beginning of everything. That evening, he walked her back to his house. The village noticed. Of course they did. A man like Femi walking beside a woman like that. It did not make sense. People whispered. They stared. Some even laughed quietly. But Femi ignored all of them. For the first time in a long time, he did not feel alone. That night, she stayed in the spare room. Femi lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep did not come easily. Something felt different. But he told himself it was just his imagination. The next morning, everything changed. Femi woke up early like he always did. He stretched his tired body, carried his hoe, and walked to his farm. But the moment he stepped onto the land, he stopped. Something was wrong.
The soil looked darker, richer, healthier. He frowned and walked forward slowly. Then he saw it. The crops he had planted just days ago had already grown. Not small, not weak, but strong, alive. Impossible. Femi dropped his hoe. What is this? He rushed forward and touched one of the plants. It was real, very real. His heart began to beat fast. This had never happened before. Not once, not ever. Slowly, he turned around. She was standing there, watching him, quiet and still. That was the first sign, and the moment he should have asked questions. But he didn't, because for the first time in his life, something good was finally happening to him. And sometimes, when a man has suffered for too long, he stops asking questions, even when he should. But what Femi did not know was that every blessing entering his life was coming with a price he would soon be forced to pay. From that day on, Femi's life began to change. At first, it was small things, easy to ignore, easy to explain away. But that was how it started. The crops did not slow down. They grew faster each day, healthier, stronger. By the end of that week, Femi harvested more food than he had ever seen in his entire life. He stood in the middle of his farm, looking at baskets filled with yams, cassava, and vegetables. And for a moment, he did not move. He just stared, because something inside him knew. This was not normal. But then another thought came, a louder one. Don't question it. Just enjoy it. And that was exactly what he did. Word spread quickly in the village. How is it possible? He was poor just last month. Is he using something? Men began to visit his farm. Some came pretending to greet him, others came pretending to buy. But all of them came for one reason, to see for themselves. And when they saw it, they had no explanation. Soon, traders from nearby villages began to come. They offered him money, good money, more money than Femi had ever held in his life. For the first time, he did not have to count money before buying food. For the first time, he slept with a full stomach. He renovated his house, changed the leaking roof, bought new clothes, even added another room. The same villagers who once ignored him now greeted him with respect. Some even forced smiles they did not mean. But through all of it, one thing remained the same. Dera. She stayed quiet, calm, almost too calm. One evening, Tunde found her sitting outside watching the sky. The sun was setting. The light touched her face gently. And for a moment, she did not look real. "You have changed my life," Tunde said, sitting beside her. She did not answer immediately. She kept looking ahead. Then slowly, she spoke. "Things that change too fast are not always safe." Tunde laughed, a small, careless laugh. "After everything I have suffered, I am not afraid of change." That was the moment he ignored his biggest warning. Days turned into weeks, weeks into a month, and everything kept getting better. Too better. The farm became bigger. Money became plenty. People began to talk, not just with curiosity anymore, but with suspicion. Something is not right. No one becomes rich like this. There is something behind it. Femi heard the whispers, but he did not care, because something else had grown inside him. Something stronger than fear. Love. He began to notice her more. The way she spoke, the way she moved, the quiet sadness in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. One night, as they sat together in silence, Femi spoke. "Stay with me," he said. She turned to him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, don't just stay as a visitor." He swallowed. "Be my wife." The air went still. For a moment, she said nothing. Then,
She looked at him deeply, as if searching his soul for something. "You don't know what you are asking," she said quietly. "I don't need to know. I just know I don't want you to leave." There was another long silence. Then she asked one question. "If I agree, will you trust me?" Femi did not hesitate. Yes. That was the answer that sealed everything. She nodded slowly. "Then I will stay."
She smiled. But that was the only night she ever gave him a choice.
The night Femi got married to Dera was the night his life changed forever. She gave him a rule so simple, yet so dangerous, that it would destroy everything he had built. That night, the house was quiet, too quiet. Femi sat on the bed. She stood by the window. The moonlight touched her back, but she did not turn to face him.
There is something you must promise me.
Anything.
She turned slowly, but did not come close.
Listen carefully. No matter what happens at night, do not look at me.
What do you mean?
Do not light a lantern. Do not call my name. Do not come near me. The room felt colder. Even if you hear something, she added quietly. Femi let out a small laugh. You are joking. She did not laugh. That was the moment something inside him shifted, just a little. Why? He asked. She looked away. You will not understand. That answer stayed in his mind, longer than it should have. But still, he said it. I promise. And just like that, he stepped into something he could not escape. From that night, things began to change. During the day, she was perfect, loving, kind, and beautiful. Everything a man could ever want. But at night, she was different. She avoided light, avoided his eyes. Sometimes she would leave the room completely. Other times, she would sit still for hours, not moving, not speaking. At first, Femi ignored it. Then he noticed something else, something worse. She never slept, not once. And the night he finally understood that truth was the night everything began to fall apart.
It did not take long. People began to notice. Not just his wealth, but his wife. Men could not stop looking at her. Women could not stop talking about her. Everywhere she passed, heads turned, voices dropped, eyes followed. She's too beautiful. No one is that perfect. Where did she come from? At first, it sounded like normal village talk, nothing serious. But then, the whispers changed. There is something wrong with that woman. I don't trust her. She doesn't behave like us. Femi heard the words, but he ignored them, because any time he looked at her during the day, he saw nothing but peace, nothing but love. Until one afternoon, someone from his past returned. Her name was Shadi. Before Femi became rich, before the strange woman entered his life, Shadi had been the closest thing he had to love. But she left. Not because she hated him, but because she did not believe in him. Now she was back, and when she saw him standing in front of his new house, wearing clean clothes, her eyes changed, not with happiness, but with something darker: regret, jealousy, and anger. So this is how your life turned out, she said, forcing a smile. Femi nodded calmly. God has been kind. Shade looked past him and saw Dera standing quietly by the doorway. For a moment, Shade said nothing. Then her smile disappeared. Where did you find her? She asked. Femi felt something in her tone, something sharp. I didn't find her, he said. She came into my life. Shade laughed, a dry, empty laugh. Of course she did. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. And you think this is normal? Femi frowned. What are you trying to see? Shade stood straight into his eyes. Men don't just become rich overnight, Femi. He said nothing. And women like that, she continued, glancing again at his wife, don't just appear from nowhere. Something about her words lingered, but Femi pushed it away. I am happy, he said firmly. That is enough. Shade studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. All right. She turned to leave, then stopped. And at night, she asked quietly. Femi's heart skipped. What happened that night? The question hit deeper than it should have. I don't know what you mean, he replied quickly. Sade smiled, but this time, there was no warmth in it. Then maybe you should find out. And just like that, she walked away. That was the first time Femi allowed doubt into his mind. And once doubt enters, it does not leave easily. That night, he could not sleep. The house felt different. The silence felt louder. Then it came again. That sound from the room where Dera lay. Soft, slow, and unnatural. Femi opened his eyes. His heart began to beat faster. Don't look, her voice echoed in his mind. Don't light a lantern. The sound came again, closer. This time, it did not sound like movement. It sounded like something dragging across the floor. Femi swallowed, his throat dry. No, it's nothing. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The next day, Sadni did something unexpected. She went to see a native doctor, a man people feared, a man people avoided. She told him everything about Femi, about his wife, about the sudden wealth. The old man listened quietly, eyes half closed. When she finished, he did not speak immediately. Then slowly, he opened his eyes and said one sentence. The woman in that house is not human.
Sade felt her heart jump. What do you mean? She asked quickly. The old man leaned forward. Some spirits come like blessings, he said, but they are not sent to stay. Sade's hands tightened. What happens if they are exposed? She asked. The old man looked at her, deep, serious. Everything they bring, they take back. Silence filled the room. And the Nan, Sade whispered. The old man did not blink. If he is lucky, he will only lose everything. A cold chill ran through her body. That evening, Sade returned to Femi, and this time she did not come with questions. She came with truth.
Femi, listen to me. That woman in your house, something is not right. She is not human. If you stay with her, you will not survive it.
Enough, he snapped. You are just jealous. Then answer me this, Sade said sharply. Why does she hide at night? Silence. Why won't she let you see her? Femi said nothing, because for the first time, he had no answer. Sade stepped closer, lowered her voice. If you don't look, you will never know. She turned and left. And that night, Femi made the decision that would destroy everything. Because sometimes curiosity is not just dangerous, it is deadly. That night, the air inside the house felt different, heavier, like something was waiting. Femi lay on his bed, eyes open, staring into the darkness. He did not try to sleep. He could not. Sade's words would not leave his mind. Why won't she let you see her? In the other room, his wife laid. Then it started. That soft, slow, and dragging sound. Femi's heart began to beat faster. Don't look, her voice echoed in his head. Do not light a lantern. The sound came again, closer and clearer. This time, there was no doubt. Something was moving.
not like a human. His fingers tightened on the bed. His breath became shallow. "No," he whispered under his breath. "It's nothing." But deep down, he knew the truth. He heard another sound. A faint hiss. Femi froze. His entire body went cold. That was when fear replaced doubt. Slowly, very slowly, he reached for the lantern beside him. His hand was shaking. "Don't do it," he whispered again. But the thought of not knowing was worse. He struck the flint. The lantern came alive. A small, trembling light. He opened the door and stepped out. The light moved with him as he tiptoed across the corridor. He stopped in front of Dera's room. "Don't do it," the voice said again, but he ignored it. With one soft push, he pushed the door open, his hands trembling. For a moment, there was nothing. Just the room, the walls, the silence. Femi swallowed. Then, slowly, he moved. The light moved with him, climbing higher. First, the bed. Then, the cloth. It was not lying flat. It was moving, rising, falling, twisting, like something underneath it was alive. Femi's heart stopped. The lantern shook in his hand. Then the cloth shifted, and he saw it. A hand, but not fully human. The fingers were slender, familiar, but the skin was wrong. Dark, shiny, and layered with scales. Femi stumbled back slightly, his heart pounding violently in his chest. "No," he whispered. The cloth moved again, this time more violently. Then, slowly, it slid off, and what lay beneath it was not his wife. A long body, coiled, covered in glistening scales, half human, half serpent. Its skin shimmered in the lantern light, its body twisted unnaturally across the bed. Then, the head lifted, and two glowing green eyes opened. They locked onto him. Femi could not move, could not breathe. The face was hers, but not fully. Something about it had changed. The beauty was still there, but now it was terrifying. Her mouth opened slightly, too wide. A soft hiss escaped her lips. Femi's voice finally broke free. "What are you?" There was silence. Then slowly, she began to turn toward him. Her movement was not human. It was smooth, controlled, deadly. The lantern slipped in his hand. His body trembled violently. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said it. "You were not meant to see this." Her voice was deeper now, heavier, like two voices speaking at once. The room suddenly grew cold. The flame in the lantern flickered wildly. Everything felt wrong. Femi stepped back. Fear took over completely. "Stay away from me," he shouted. But she did not move toward him. She simply watched him. And in her eyes, there was no anger, only disappointment. Then something began to happen. At first, it was small. The lantern flickered. Then, the walls shook slightly. Then everything changed. Outside, a strong wind began to rise. Inside, the room felt like it was breaking apart. Femi turned in confusion. Then he saw it. The money he had kept in the corner was turning to dust right before his eyes. His breath caught. No, no, no. He rushed toward it, tried to grab it, but it slipped through his fingers. Gone.
The baskets of food rotting instantly, dark, spoilt, and useless. Femi staggered back in horror. What is happening? Her voice came again, calm, cold. Everything you have came from me. The ground shook harder. Everything you enjoyed was never yours. Femi's legs gave way. He fell to the floor. Please, he begged. Please stop. But it was too late. Curiosity, she said slowly, has a price. The wind roared louder. The light went out. Darkness swallowed the room. And in the next second, she was gone. Morning came, but nothing remained. The house was empty, the farm dry and dead. The soil had returned to what it once was, hard, lifeless. Femi walked through it slowly, like a man who had lost his soul. The villagers noticed. They gathered, whispers spread again. But this time, not with curiosity, with fear. He is cursed. No one should go near him. He brought something into this village, and now it has left. No one came close, no one helped. Femi was alone again, but this time worse than before. Because now he knew what he had lost and why. Femi sat in front of his broken house, staring at nothing. And in a quiet voice he said, "Not every blessing is a gift. Some come with a price."
Thank you for watching. If this story touched you in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African Stories That Touch, where every story has a lesson.